Okay, I think we're ready to get started. Welcome everyone to this event, which is about the United Nations Association in the United States. This event is a part of the Bellevue College Earth Week events, which we are exploring topics around the theme, The Future is Now, which strives for a just and sustainable future for all. You can see our full schedule of events by visiting the link in the chat box, and we will post that link shortly. My name is Amber Nicholson, and I am from the Bellevue College Office of Sustainability. I will be moderating this event. Before we get started, we do have a few things to go over. First of all, you are muted upon joining, and we would like for you to remain on mute unless you are actively responding to a prompt from the speaker or a question. If you'd like to keep your camera on, it does make for a more engaging session for everyone and helps us to build community. This event is also being recorded to post on our sustainability website. Throughout the session, please treat everyone with respect and share your comments and questions in the chat box. We will open up for Q&A, where you can either unmute yourself or have us read out your questions. For the best Zoom experience, I recommend you click the speaker view button in the top right corner of your screen. Lastly, we pause to acknowledge that Bellevue College resides on the traditional and occupied land of the Coast Salish peoples, past, present, and future. That includes but is not limited to Snoqualmie, Suquamish, Duwamish, Nisqually, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot. We honor their connection to the region, pay respect to Coast Salish elders past and present, and stand in solidarity through their struggles with continued systemic oppression. We commit to care for the land and water and center equity at the core of our unlearning. Now let me take a quick moment to introduce our speaker, Jackson. Jackson is the UNAUSA Campus Fellow for the Western region, serving and supporting campus chapters at nearby universities in the Western region. Jackson is a student at Arizona State University, studying sustainability and global studies. He has served as Vice President of Advocacy for the ASU UNA chapter for 2 years, connecting students to opportunities to create social change through the UN and other outlets. Outside of UNA, he works with fair trade campaigns as a member of the regional leadership team and is involved in various on-campus social change organizations and participates in the Millennium Fellowship through the UN Academic Impact. Welcome, Jackson.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction, Amber. Yeah, that's enough about me. If you want to know more after I have a short presentation, feel free to ask questions, but I wanted to start by sharing some information with you all about sustainability and climate advocacy with the United Nations Association of the USA. And I'll share resources that we have for this, some history about the organization, what we do, how you can get involved, how we're organized and structured, all of that fun stuff. But I want this to be a very interactive and discussion-based event as well. So after the presentation, which won't take too long, I want us to have plenty of time for discussion about anything you have, maybe questions for me about UNAUSA or my experiences, or just a discussion about sustainability and how we can be involved as students, because I'm a firm believer that really discussion is the best way to learn a lot of times from your peers and from others. And I think with topics that are so intricate and everyone has a unique perspective on, such as sustainability, it's important that we're hearing others speak their own thoughts and what they think is important in this field. So yeah, but with that, I will share my screen and start presenting for you. For 1 second, you're gonna see that I have like 60,000 tabs open, so don't judge me for that. That's just the person I am. But here we go. So a little bit about sustainability and climate advocacy with UNAUSA. Everyone can see my screen before I get started, right? Cool. Yep. So UNAUSA is a grassroots movement of Americans working to build support for the United Nations. And it was began in 1943 by former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. Just before this organization began, the UN was ratified and signed on to by the US. But she really recognized the need for people to understand what the UN does and for everyday people to advocate for it. Because at the end of the day, it's our members of Congress and our elected representatives who get to decide if we as a country continue to support the UN. So if there's not people like us advocating for it, our members of Congress might not give money to it, they might not understand its importance, they might not continue to just support the organization in general. So that's why this was founded, to build support and make sure that the US is always a strong player in the United Nations and promoting global social change in that way. We have chapters all over the country. This map is from a year or so ago, so we have even more, but each of these dots is a chapter, both community, which are like towns and usually adults, and campus chapters, which are high school and college, university students. But I help people. Can you see my mouse? Actually, it's okay if not. Okay, so I'm the Western Region Campus Fellow, which means I help 13 states, all sort of in this area here, including Alaska and Hawaii, not Texas. I didn't mean to do Texas, but that includes you guys. So me down here normally in Arizona, I get to help you guys up in, you're in Washington, right? Yes, okay. I help you guys all the way up there too and help build community between everyone in our network and just support change makers and students in making a difference. So I love what I get to do. My term is coming to an end actually this next month. So soon you'll have someone else helping you, but I'll always be here for questions and help no matter what. And I'll always be a supporter of UNAUSA. Some of our signature events that the organization hosts are our Global Engagement Summit, which takes place at the UN. I have not been able to go to this yet because of a combination of COVID and just not having time to, being a student, having my own priorities and other things. But it's super cool. Anyone who's a part of the organization can go, and you get to sit in the assembly hall. A lot of times people get to meet the UN Secretary General, a lot of other officers and people who work there. Amazing. Another event is our Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C. Both of these two things are annual events that happen every year. DC is where the organization is based. We have a lot of people who advocate on Capitol Hill and all of that. So it's important that we have that political connection between the UN and DC. And then UN Day, which is every October, and organization-wide, of course, we support this because we support the UN, but a lot of campus chapters create their own initiatives and events to celebrate the anniversary of the founding of the UN. We also have some virtual events now with COVID, and these, I can tell you, are here to stay, even as COVID is starting to wind down in the US. I think accessibility to virtual events is really important. On the left is a photo just showing our UNAUSA graduation. So that's coming up in May. We celebrate all of our graduating university and high school members with a virtual ceremony. We have our Global Engagement Online series, which is a series of academic and educational events talking about really anything. Some of them are bringing in speakers from the Universal Periodic Review or the Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights, or people who work at UNAUSA, or our member of the Youth Envoy, the US Youth Observer. Really cool people who have a lot to share. And then we also have podcasts, educational series, a lot of ways for people to learn more just in general. And I want to take a moment to get everyone thinking and involved. These, if you don't know them, are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals created as part of the 2030 Agenda of the United Nations for Sustainable Development. And these 17 goals each represent a different target area that the UN has identified as important for promoting sustainable development by this date. These build off of the 2000 Millennium Development Goals, which weren't quite so successful. So these were sort of a second round, an approach to do something a little, hopefully more impactful. And there is a lot of progress being done, but there's a lot to still do before 2030. But I want everyone to take a moment and think about maybe one or two of your favorite SDGs, as they're commonly abbreviated as, and then you can either share in the chat, or you can raise your hand and speak out loud and talk about how they're related. So I could give an example. My favorite SDGs are 12, responsible consumption and production, and 17, partnerships for the goals. So I could say these two are related because partnerships between businesses and corporations with the government for regulating them are necessary in order to really make sure that responsible consumption and production is something that can be spread on a national and global level. So without supporting partnerships for corporations, there would be a big lack of communication that could hinder success in achieving this goal. So everyone, for an example, you guys can think of 2 of your favorite goals and then share in the chat or raise your hand and speak out loud. I'll give you all a minute to do that. Good one, Hannah. Yes, yes, yes. All women do not have the same rights worldwide. So number 5, gender equality, and 10, reduced inequalities, very important. And those are some of the most common ones that I hear are people's favorites. 2 and 6 from Cody, 0 hunger, and oh wait, what am I seeing? My view of everyone was covering number 6, clean water and sanitation. There was a time where I used to have all of them memorized by heart, and I've since forgotten that, but I see them so often that I don't necessarily need to have them memorized. 13, climate action. Yes, that's a super big one right now, of course. I think climate movements for climate action are really, I don't want to say the thing to make it sound like a trend, but they're a very popular thing at the moment and very necessary thing. They're popular for a reason. Cool. And if anyone else has any that they want to put in the chat, go ahead. But I'm going to go on to our next slide here. Okay. So related to sustainability and climate action with UNAUSA, it's good that you brought that one up, Amber. Goal 13 of the Sustainable Development Goals is related to climate action specifically, and it requires that all member nations and those supporting the goals take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. Some ways that the UN supports this is through the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC. This is a recurring conference, an organization that advocates for change on an organizational-wide level and sets a lot of the policy precedents when it comes to combating climate change. There's also a Green Climate Fund, for example, and the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, called on member states to bring concrete and realistic climate action plans at the 2019 UN Climate Action Summit. So there's a lot of work that is done to support action on climate change at the UN, but I think we all know there's a lot more that still needs to be done. But it's also very inspiring and helpful when we know that we have international and globally based collaboration towards making a difference. So with this call to action that the UN Secretary General had, that's him on the cover of Time magazine. Maybe, I don't know if he's maybe the most household recognized name, but he's obviously a very, very, very important person in the world, leading arguably the most important global organization. He called on people and UNAUSA members and citizens of the world to be local leaders in the fight against climate change. And I think that will always ring true. The reality is, and I know sometimes it sounds cliche to hear that global change starts with local action, but that's just the reality, as cheesy as it sometimes sounds. And sometimes it can feel like what we're doing is not recognized or not worth it if you're doing work just in your community when you know that these challenges are so pressing on a larger scale. But all the work that we do is very impactful. I like the quote. I'm not going to say quote because I'm probably not going to quote it directly perfectly, but it's related to, if you ever think you're too small to make a difference, think about the mosquito in your room or the fly in your room. And I think that's the perfect example of how we can all make a difference. And it's important that we're all continuing to advocate for change, even at the local level. So a little more on the climate action progress that the UN has achieved through the advocacy of UNAUSA. There's the SDG 13 Climate Action High Level Political Forum, which reviews linkages with other SDGs. That's why I had us do the activity at the beginning where I thought of how two SDGs are linked together, because they're all very interconnected, as I think if you don't already know or haven't realized, you will. And how it's related to SDGs 5, 7, 8, and 16. So some challenges with climate action progress is that, of course, there's a lot of global warming expected to decrease crop yields in many areas, which makes food insecurity a lot worse, promotes, well, I don't want to say promotes, but creates malnutrition and stunting in poor communities. There will be an estimated 1 million animal and plant species threatened with extinction in the coming years. I didn't put a date for that because it's difficult to put a year with how rapidly things are changing regarding our climate, unfortunately. Hopefully it ends up being less than 1 million if we can make a difference. And water quality has significantly worsened since 1990 because organic and chemical pollution has entered water streams, and more than 75% of freshwater resources are now devoted solely to crops or livestock production. So an example there of how it ties into another SDG is that food is directly related to, you could say, responsible consumption and production, but also zero hunger and good health and well-being, a lot of interconnectedness there. But there is positive momentum when it comes to climate action, thankfully. There's been a recent uptick in marine protection. Forest loss is declining globally. There's still places where it's horrible, but globally we're getting a little better. Countries such as the UK, Chile, Finland, and the Marshall Islands have developed concrete and detailed plans to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. I would say that's even more now. This PowerPoint is from a few months ago. So I'm not the climate action expert. I'm not going to put that on myself, but I would guarantee you there are a few more since then. And in the US, 25 governors have committed to act on climate to advance the goals of the Paris Agreement. That, of course, has changed since we have switched administrations. There's a lot more commitment to rejoining or joining the Paris Agreement from the stance of the United States. Some resources for you all to get involved in climate action through UNAUSA. We are a part of, well, not a part, but we use this resource called Act Now, which just gives you a lot of ways and quick tips for getting involved. You guys, I'll share this presentation with everyone after the event if anyone's interested, or we can go over it too once I finish presenting. But I can share those resources with you. We have a UN Youth Climate Summit delegation where youth are really put at the center and allowed to speak their concerns. And I think it's really important because young people are the ones leading the way in a lot of climate action and in the movement for climate action. There's also the UN Youth Climate Summit, blogger fellows and activist trainings, which we have recorded. UNAUSA specifically has an environmental justice toolkit, which is super chock full of good information. And we have a climate book for change makers. So here's everyone at UNAUSA for our engagement summit or our advocacy summit and days in DC on Capitol Hill, which hopefully as COVID starts to subside, it's not going to happen again this year in person, but next year I can pretty much guarantee, unless if something goes crazy with the world, that we will be back in person and we can all participate in this. And I would love to go. Hopefully I can see some of you guys there as well. But this is just letting us know that this is part of a bigger movement. We have some 20,000 members across the country. So this is in no way just us working in a small room by ourselves. This is people working to make a difference on a daily basis. And that's what it's going to take if we want to make climate action a real successful thing. Some other things that we're working on are advocacy petitions and calls to actions. These are super quick. Literally, you just you click on the links to these forums. We also have text bots that send them out to you, and you can just click a link that's sent to your phone, and you can either fill out a pre-filled message to your members of Congress that says like, hi, I'm so-and-so. I would like to see you act on climate change, do something with legislation to make a difference, join the Paris Agreement, yada, yada, yada. Or you can write in your own. Even though it sounds easy and simple and like it's not going to do anything, I know from meeting with my members of Congress, the UNAUSA, that they do actually listen to the info and feedback that we're giving to them. So I would highly recommend that you participate in these. They're super easy, like I said. And also just being there to share your stories. If you're speaking with a member of Congress, share how climate change and action for participating in this movement for climate action has affected you and what it means to you. And that's going to speak volumes to people so that they can better understand why they should care about it if it's something that doesn't affect them the same way, or maybe they just don't know about it. But again, as young people, we have a lot of power to inspire, and we are the people who are going to be in power soon to make a difference. So it's important that we first understand why it matters to us, why it matters to the world, and then how we can communicate this effectively. We do have some recommendations for how you convey this information on blogs and social media. The first is that people really want tangible and actionable advice. They want to know how they can make a difference. Like, information is great, but I can speak even from a personal perspective that if I'm not told information and then what I can do with it, sometimes it honestly goes in one ear and out the next. So it's important to give people takeaways for how they can make a difference and be really direct with that. Say, go sign this petition, or host this event, or attend this event, do this, buy this. Well, depends what you're buying. I'm hesitant to talk about buying stuff when it comes to sustainability, but you know what I mean. But yes, give tangible and actionable advice, and then make the issues relevant to your local community and include real examples. That's when it comes back to storytelling and being able to express yourself clearly and why it matters to you. The best way to speak to your community is make it relevant to them. I wouldn't talk to the Fair Trade Cafe in Arizona, for example, about no hunger in New York, because yeah, maybe they'll care about it because they're good people, but what is that going to do for their business, their organization, their community? Just make it relevant to them, and it'll get people more likely to engage with you and make a difference. Some tips for creating a sustainable project. And in this case, I think it's important to differentiate what sustainable means. Sometimes people use it usually referring to like sustainability in terms of what I study and do, but other times they say sustainable as like enduring and long lasting and something that will work for a long time. This one is a little bit more of the second, making sure that you create a project that will last and continue working. So to create a sustainable project, it's very important that you first identify a key issue in your local community, like I said, and that could mean talking to people, community leaders, students, marginalized communities as a form of research to figure out what's important. Find key partners so that they can help you continue working in the long term and make a real difference. And then determine key indicators of success in a project timeline. The last, if you want to get the support of your UNAUSA chapter, of course, is to present the idea to them and engage members, because that's what we do best. We are a membership organization and we have people ready to go to make a difference. That's why we're here. Come with your ideas, and then you know that you have a group of people ready to come help you put it into action. One other thing that I wanted to share that isn't exactly related to our climate advocacy and sustainability, but is super cool and an awesome way of involving the SDGs in your work through UNAUSA is using my.interview.org. And this is a way of tracking your community service and categorizing it according to which SDG or SDGs it's related to. And then there's like annual service awards where you can be recognized for what you've done. It's free to join. And the cool part for me is that you can use it as an individual or whoever's in charge of your UNAUSA chapter can do it as an organization. So you can track all the service that your organization has done. And it's also a great way of it creates a service resume for you. So you can have a compiled list and resume showing that you've done service related to this SDG and this organization. And it really just makes it look like a formal thing that you've done to make the world a better place. Great to show employers, scholarships, schools, all of that. And that was all that I had. Here is my contact information. If anyone wants to get in touch with me, or Hannah would be happy to answer questions too. Or a lot of times if I don't know the answer to your questions, I will forward you up to the person who supervises me, Anna Mahalik. She is the youth engagement manager for UNAUSA, and she knows everything about this organization in and out. So I'm sort of your peer point of contact to help, but she's the real professional person who can help with a lot of things. But I'll leave this up for a little bit if people want to write that down or anything, or send an email. But that was all I had in terms of a presentation. And I want to open it up now for questions that anyone has about the organization, has for me, and then even anything we want to discuss. If you have questions about sustainability, climate advocacy, questions for other people here to have a discussion about how do we really make a difference in our communities, or what are big concerns, whatever you guys want, I'll leave it to you. If not, I have some guiding questions that I can use to lead the way, but I'll let anyone who wants to raise their hand, put in the chat, speak, go ahead for now. Cody, talk about Act Now. Yeah, let me go back and I will actually click on that link for everyone so that we can see. Yes, that's a good question. So if we go to this link, Act Now, which is a resource of UNAUSA, well, the UN, I should say, through UNAUSA. Act Now is the UN's campaign for individual action, as you can see. And here we can see this number, what would that be? 2,205,313 individual climate actions have been taken around the world through the mobile app and chatbot for Act Now. I'm not going to download the app at the moment, but Act Now, you can see here, is the UN's campaign for individual action on climate change and sustainability. And the idea is that everyone can help make a difference by changing our habits, making choices that have less harmful effects on the environment, and empowering people to confront the climate challenge and build a more sustainable world. So it's a way to log your actions that you're making, be a part of a community of other people making a difference, and sort of similar to MyInterview, the service one, just have a community and gain recognition for the difference that you're making. Here, this one, for example, is talking about food waste and how people make a difference to that. Climate Action Superheroes, which is empowering kids and young people to be leaders for change in their community and learn how to support climate action. Yeah. Oh, here it gives examples of quick habitable changes you can make to be more responsible in terms of your climate impact and sustainability. It's a very good resource for people looking to make a difference who don't really quite know how yet. So maybe for some people from UNAUSA who already know a little bit about this, you might think, oh, some of these are very easy and straightforward, but it's a really good introductory resource for making a difference. And I think sustainability is really important about meeting people where they're at and not being judgmental about what people do or don't know. Because that's what our job is, to sit there and help them learn how to be better. Here, we'll watch this 50-second video clip really quickly about Act Now, and then hopefully that answers your question, or not question, but covers everything about that you wanted, Cody. There you go. So yeah, Act Now is a great way to track your actions and be part of this greater community where it says we've had, again, over 2 million actions taken to support climate action and make the world a better place and a more sustainable one. Hopefully that covered everything you wanted, Cody. If not, we can talk more about it, but let me know. Where else were we? I'll go back to our slideshow. Does anyone else have questions at the moment? Andrew, you said, do you need to be a student to be involved in UNAUSA? No, you do not. We have different forms of membership. One is to be part of a campus chapter, which is a high school or college. Of course, if you're part of that, you're most likely a student. But even for that, for our youth membership, that's for anyone 25 and under. It's free. And even if you've graduated and you're no longer a student, you can still join through your university or college or high school's campus chapter for free until you're 25. Then you do have to start paying regular or annual dues as a community chapter member. And that's the other way to participate, is if you're not a student or if you're past that age range, you can join a community chapter, which is the same thing, but it's for towns, usually for adults, people who aren't associated with a school. And if there's not a community chapter near you, not a campus chapter near you, and you don't have access to one that already exists and you don't want to start one on your own, you can also be what's known as a member at large, which is just an individual who participates in the organization, supports, does all the same things, just isn't necessarily associated with one particular chapter. Hopefully that answered your question, Andrew. There you go. Yeah. Hannah, you asked me, how can students become UNA members? Yeah, because you guys have several students who are not UNA members and haven't heard of it. Yeah, you can become members by first, well, you guys are lucky enough at Bellevue to have a very active and amazing campus chapter. So you can, I would say, talk to Hannah, talk to me, talk to Anna about getting involved, and we can connect you to the right people. But you can also go to the UNAUSA website, and there's a tab or a page on our website that talks about membership and how you can sign up. And it's super easy. You just say what chapter you're associated with. If you have to pay your dues, if you're an adult, you do that and give your contact information, and then you become an official member, registered member of UNAUSA. Also, maybe a note to Hannah in particular, a lot of times what we see with campus chapters is that there are a lot of students who think they're members because they participate regularly in their campus chapter events, but they're not actually formally registered. So it's important to make sure that everyone is registered and knows how to do that, to make sure they're gaining the full benefits and are really part of such a cool organization. Alyssa, you asked me, what are some sustainability projects I've done at my school? This is exciting. There's a lot I could share about because it's something that I'm really passionate about and have done a lot with. And now that I'm finishing up my junior year just about, I've had a lot of time to get involved at ASU. Some of the things that I've done is my first semester as a freshman, I joined our Fair Trade campaign at ASU. Fair Trade Campaigns works as the educational branch of Fair Trade USA. And if you guys don't know what Fair Trade is, it's a certification that makes sure that products are produced in a way that are socially and environmentally responsible. A lot of it is emphasizing workers' rights and environmental sustainability. And I joined our Fair Trade campaign to make ASU the largest fair trade university in the country, one that's committed to sourcing fair trade products, knows about these things, work with companies. And I joined and helped establish us as the largest fair trade university. We were successful, and I still lead it today. I'm the president, but we're now known as the Sustainable Business Association at ASU. And I've been able to do a lot of really cool things through there. My favorite was probably hosting a fair trade fashion show my freshman year for Arizona Eco Fashion Week in April of 2019. And we worked with a local nonprofit fashion incubator called Fabric, because they have a space where people can rent out like sewing equipment and materials to start their sustainable fashion brands, but they also have a runway. So we hosted this event not knowing anything about how to host a fashion show. Me and 3 or 4 other officers, because that's all that our club was. We didn't even have membership. It was just 4 of us who were trying to like make a difference. And we hosted this event. We spoke with a lot of vendors and potential fair trade fashion companies that we had met at the Fair Trade Campaigns Conference in Chicago, ones we just knew by point of contact, volunteering, and we ended up getting donations from 7 brands, organized all of the models. We did a student model casting call, got catering from our university, hosted an event for about 150 people. It was free to attend, but we ended up auctioning off all the clothing and apparel that we presented in the show, and raised about $1,000 to support producers interested in becoming fair trade certified to attend educational training. So that's probably like my most proud project that I've done related to sustainability in my student org at school. ASU is really big on sustainability, so I feel very grateful to be able to study it here. But some other things that I've done outside of extracurriculars are through academics. I'm in a class right now called Global Resolve that partners students with international development projects. And I've been able to work for the last 2 semesters on creating an innovation lab to promote resiliency against climate action in St. Lucia. And meet with students there, hopefully get to go there next semester now that COVID's done. That's been really cool. Another is that I'm doing right now is a capstone project working with Conservation International in Peru on analyzing carbon sequestration and management, and in partnership with a local indigenous community, and developing a 10 to 15 year implementation plan for how they can really be successful with this. So just really cool things that I'm grateful to have been able to do through my classes as well. And in terms of getting involved for that, I would say if there aren't direct opportunities that you know of at your university or school like this, ask your professors because they're so well connected. I can't even emphasize that enough. My professors, like, sometimes they seem quirky and weird, and they are quirky and weird, but they also have the most amazing connections and could probably call up like 10 awesome people around the world to advocate for you or get you connected to whatever you need. Like literally, I never would have sat here thinking I'm working with Conservation International for a class, but my professor is just sitting here like, oh yeah, back like 20 years ago, I worked with them and, you know, I studied in the rainforest and did this. And I'm like, oh, I thought you were a little more bland than that. I'm like, that's super cool. So ask your professors, ask for resources, or reach out to resources such as your Office of Sustainability here. They know people too. And don't be afraid to ask about getting involved with these things or making your own path, because the best part of being at a university for me is knowing that people want to help you. Hopefully that answered your question, Alyssa. Let me know if you have anything else, or email me. I can talk anymore. Ariana, you said, what about large corporations and their waste and pollution? Can individual action overcome that? So I'm going to preface this by saying that my opinion is not the end all be all, because sustainability is something that in order to be successful needs a lot of people making a difference in different ways. And everyone's approach to it is important because it's such a complex issue. But for me personally, I don't like to say I'm pessimistic. I like to say I'm a little more realistic. I honestly do not think individual action is as important as a lot of times we are made to believe it is. That's not to say I want you all to be out here, throwing plastic into the oceans and not making efforts to eat plant-based and things like that and buy sustainably. But for me, the reality is that the world is governed by systems. And when we are telling individuals that their actions are the things that are being so harmful to the planet, that's a failure of designing a system that places the responsibility on people higher up in that system, meaning for me, large corporations and governments. I think it would be a lot more effective if we just had regulations in the first place for where governments told corporations, you can't do that. And then we wouldn't have to worry about, I think it's something like, what's the number? Like 100 companies in the world are responsible for like 74% of like carbon emissions or something like that. I think if we shifted that responsibility to them instead of on individuals, that would be a lot faster. Not to say that that's an easy change, but I'm a big advocate for advocating for that. And again, I do individual change as well because I know it's important. We all play a difference. But do I think me as an individual is going to be as important as maybe an organization or a law changing in the first place? No, I would advocate for that higher level stuff before castigating others for saying, you're not eating plant-based, that's so horrible. I would say, okay, you're not eating plant-based, that's okay. Maybe at least come advocate for change on a system level with me, and let's try to make a difference there. And that's where organizations like UNAUSA are huge, because we have this huge membership base and connections to people in Congress that have the ability to make that difference and really actually put into place laws and new rules that will make these sustainable changes more possible, in my opinion. But again, all that I've said is my personal opinion, and from what I've studied, my perspective. It's in no way the only one. There's some of my best friends who in my sustainability program have the complete opposite opinion, and I will in no way bash them or say that what they're doing is wrong, because I know they're doing great stuff and that they're going to make a difference, and I'm confident I'm going to make a difference too. But it's important that we're making a change at all these levels, all these steps of the systems that we live in. So it's not really an answer. I guess I can't say have a real answer, because I want everyone to make a difference and be happy with what you're doing. But that's my personal opinion. Hopefully, Ariana, that answered your question a bit and wasn't too confusing. Again, message me if you have any other questions or if anyone wants to know anything else. In terms of what's in the chat, I think I've answered all of the questions there. Thank you, Hannah, for putting that link in to find a campus chapter or find a chapter. If you guys are not members of a UNAUSA chapter, you can go look right there and find the one nearest to you. Like I said, if there isn't one and you want to get involved, you can still be involved as an individual member, or you can create your own chapter. I will always say create your own chapter. That's so cool. There are a few requirements, of course. You can't do it alone. You need, I think it's at least 10 active members, I'm going to say. I might be wrong with that, so don't quote me. But yeah, if you want to, always go ahead and try to create your own chapter. That's amazing. Does anyone have any questions that they've been holding in and want to ask out loud, or any others in the chat? Topics that you want me to touch more on, anything like that?
Jackson, will you go to the contacts at the end just so people can look at that again?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Here you go. Also, I'll say a big shout out to Hannah and everyone at the Bellevue chapter. Actually featured you all as a spotlight blog post on the UNAUSA website for doing such amazing work. And I know you guys were just sort of starting out and getting your feet under you, but big praise, because you've done amazing. And I think you're a great example of what a successful chapter is. You guys have always been so engaged and so inspiring. And you even won our +1 membership campaign. So that speaks to your success. Great job to all of you. If any of you on the call here are interested in getting involved and aren't a member at Bellevue, definitely get involved from my perspective. They're amazing, amazing, amazing.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Jackson. And I know it's late for you in Barcelona. So we extra appreciate that effort. And thanks for everyone that attended today. If you have more questions rather about UNA at Bellevue College, I think Hannah is the person to reach out to. Is that correct, Hannah?
Yes.
Awesome. So thank you so much, and check out the rest of our Earth Week events via the link we posted in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Feel free to email me with anything ever.